Please explain in detail about AP U.S. government and politics on required Supreme cases. 5. Marbury v. Madison, 1803 Judicial Branch. 6. Engle v. Vitale, 1962 Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. 7. Wisconsin v. Yoder, 1972 Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. And 8. Tinker v. Des Moines, 1969 Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. 5. Marbury v. Madison, 1803 Judicial Branch. Marbury v. Madison, 1803, is a landmark Supreme Court case that established the principle of judicial review, giving the Supreme Court the power to declare laws unconstitutional. The case arose when William Marbury, an appointee of President John Adams, sued Secretary of State James Madison for not delivering his commission as a Justice of the Peace. Chief Justice John Marshall, aware of the political implications of the case, crafted a decision that would solidify the court's authority. In his opinion, Marshall argued that the section of the Judiciary Act of 1789 that authorized Marbury's appointment was unconstitutional because it expanded the court's original jurisdiction beyond what was enumerated in the Constitution. By asserting the authority to strike down this law, the Supreme Court established the power of judicial review, which enables the court to determine the constitutionality of federal and state laws and actions by the executive branch. This decision significantly strengthened the judicial branch and ensured the court's role as a check on the other branches of government. 6. Engle v. Vitale, 1962 Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. Engle v. Vitale, 1962, was a Supreme Court case that ruled state-sponsored prayer in public schools unconstitutional, even if the prayer was voluntary and non-denominational. The case involved the New York State Board of Regents' adoption of a short, voluntary prayer for recitation in public schools. A group of parents sued, arguing that the practice violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, which prohibits the government from establishing an official religion or favoring one religion over another. In a 6-1 decision, the Supreme Court held that the prayer's inclusion in the public school day constituted an unconstitutional government endorsement of religion. The court emphasized the importance of maintaining a strict separation between church and state, and held that even non-denominational prayer in schools violated the Establishment Clause. Engle v. Vitale thus significantly expanded the scope of First Amendment protections and helped to shape the court's subsequent rulings on the issue of religion in public schools. 7. Wisconsin v. Yoder, 1972 Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. Wisconsin v. Yoder, 1972, was a Supreme Court case that examined the limits of the state's power to regulate education and religious freedom. The case involved 3 Amish families who refused to send their children to public schools past the 8th grade, arguing that doing so would violate their religious beliefs. Wisconsin law, however, required children to attend school until age 16. In a unanimous decision, the court ruled in favor of the Yoder family, stating that the state's interest in compelling education past the 8th grade was not sufficient to outweigh the fundamental right to religious freedom guaranteed by the First Amendment. The court held that the Amish way of life and education was sufficient to prepare their children for life in their community and that additional schooling would undermine their religious beliefs. Wisconsin v. Yoder remains a significant case in the realm of religious freedom and the rights of parents to direct their children's education. 8. Tinker v. Des Moines, 1969 Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. Tinker v. Des Moines, 1969, was a Supreme Court case that affirmed the right of students to engage in symbolic speech in public schools, as long as it did not disrupt the educational process. The case involved students who wore black armbands to school to protest the Vietnam War. The school district, anticipating the protest, adopted a policy prohibiting the wearing of armbands and suspended the students who violated the policy. In a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court held that the students' actions constituted protected symbolic speech under the First Amendment. The court emphasized that students do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. The majority opinion, written by Justice Abe Fortas, stressed that the school officials could not censor student speech simply out of a fear of potential disruption. Instead, there had to be a reasonable expectation of a substantial interference with the educational process or the rights of others. The Tinker decision has had a lasting impact on the scope of First Amendment protections for students in public schools. It established the principle that students have a right to engage in political and social expression, as long as their actions do not disrupt the educational process or infringe on the rights of others. The case has been cited in numerous subsequent decisions involving student speech, including cases addressing controversial clothing, student newspapers, and online expression. In conclusion, these four Supreme Court cases, Marbury v. Madison, Engle v. Vitale, Wisconsin v. Yoder, and Tinker v. Des Moines, have played a crucial role in shaping the legal landscape of the United States. Marbury v. Madison established the principle of judicial review, granting the Supreme Court the authority to determine the constitutionality of laws and actions by the executive branch. Engle v. Vitale and Wisconsin v. Yoder expanded the scope of First Amendment protections related to religion, emphasizing the importance of maintaining a strict separation between church and state and affirming the right to religious freedom. Tinker v. Des Moines extended First Amendment protections to students in public schools, ensuring their right to engage in political and social expression as long as it does not disrupt the educational process or infringe on the rights of others. Collectively, these cases have had a profound impact on the development of American jurisprudence and the protection of civil liberties and civil rights.